deep penetrating blast from the ship's whistle, and the eagerly awaited moment has come. We are on our way to the far north. While our ship is slowly backing out into the busy Hudson, we wave happily to friends on the pier, shouting their cheery bon voyage. The ship turns gracefully and heads down the river. As we watch New York's jagged skyline drift by, we see other liners, some going out, some coming in. We are glad to leave the heat behind, and cooling breezes give us a foretaste of the briny ocean waiting for us. Ever alert officers scan the horizon through their binoculars. We head for the open spaces of the Atlantic. Up on the sports deck, eager athletes are already limbering up, playing deck tennis and shuffleboard. Reykjavik, or Steaming Bay, the capital of Iceland, was discovered and named by Ingolfur Arnarsson and his Norse Vikings almost 1,100 years ago. In the ancient cathedral, we find the baptismal stone of Thorvaldsson, the great Danish sculptor. He was of Icelandic origin, and his memory is proudly honored. We stroll through the quaint streets, so different from anything found at home. A monument to Leif Erikson, the adventurous seafaring son of Erik the Red, was presented by America to the people of Iceland in 1930 on the 1000th anniversary of the Althing, the first parliament in the world. Three maidens hurry by and we want their photograph. Well, it looks as if hairpins might be a good export article if they all use as many as she does. Look at that warm smile from Iceland. And here we are at one of Iceland's modern laundries, a hot spring with the ever-boiling water at such a high temperature that long wooden sticks must be used. No, there isn't a single Chinese laundry on the whole island. The traffic is pretty heavy in ponies, so we'll take a road cut through a solid lava field, leading us to the meeting place of the first parliament, Tingvellir, the Valley of the Ting, which means gathering, for this is where the local council used to meet. Codfish is one of the chief industries of Iceland, together with sheep and cattle raising. Well, it looks as if the fishing was pretty good this season. The last launch to the ship is ready to leave, and we return to our floating home, sailing into the brilliant dusk. On our way to Spitsbergen, we pass lonely Jan Mayen Island, discovered by Henry Hudson in 1607. But it bears the name of Jan Mayen, a Dutch navigator who claimed to have discovered it in 1611. Making our way slowly along the fringe of the polar ice, we see some of the frozen wastes for which these latitudes are famous. Huge floes broken away from some slowly moving river of drifting ice are with us all the way to Spitsbergen. Here, startling panoramas of glittering beauty greet our enchanted eyes. Magdalena Bay, where we anchor, allows us to get a first-hand knowledge of a mighty glacier. Look at that solid and very cold ice. How some of our friends, fanning themselves in the July heat back home, would enjoy it right now. Seagull eggs are almost impossible to see due to their speckled coloring. They didn't bury this ancient whaler very carefully, and nearer the water we see the bleached bones of a huge whale. Again, the busy little launch whisks us back to the ship, and we continue on our way. Towering mountain ranges, carrying in their valleys the relentlessly grinding giants of ice, roaring like thunder as they march toward the sea, follow one another as we slowly sail by. It's an awe-inspiring and magnificent sight beyond description. The glitter of the sun on the quiet, motionless water is an unforgettable sight. Arriving at Cross Bay, we gaze in awe at the tremendous Suppan Glacier, more than 7 miles wide at its base. We are glad to sail by it, as the mere thought of walking across it gives us cold feet. It's 10:30 p.m. as we approach Kings Bay, which will give you an idea of just how bright that midnight sun really is. In the far distance, the Three Crowns push their proud pinnacles into the silent air. It was from Kings Bay that nobly Amundsen and Ellsworth started on their polar flights. Here's the general store, where the owner could entertain us for hours with tales of Arctic adventures. A large colliery and coal deposit rears its unsightly head in the surrounding beauty of nature. The dirigible Norge occupied this hangar before Nobily's ill-fated dash to the top of the world. Eiderdown and its chief manufacturer, the eider duck. Here's a little turnchick, species of the seagull. It seems to resent the friendly approach system of somebody's hands. Amundsen lived in this house while preparing for his flights. And nearby, a monument has been erected bearing the names of the intrepid explorers of the far-flung northern wastes. A cheery Norwegian girl welcomes us with a warm smile to her beautiful country. Hammerfest, the northernmost city in the world, is a timber-built, clean and busy city, almost entirely restored after a disastrous fire in 1890. Millions of herrings and anchovies are exported yearly from this bustling port. Well, here's Miss Lapland walking her dog. The only polar bear that we shall see isn't at all what he used to be. The Meridian Monument commemorates the measuring of the arc of the meridian from 1816 to 1852. It bears the names of the 3 rulers who sponsored the work. Quick delivery of fresh fish is just a matter of going down to the boat. Wrap it for you, madam? Codfish have to be dried for shipment to your favorite delicatessen. Scaling a fish is a messy job, but a still messier one is boning them. This chap seems to be quite an expert in preparing a shore dinner. Wouldn't that skin look nice in front of the fireplace? Wonder how much they want for it. Bird's Cape is a rocky island where myriads of seabirds make their home. The bleak and barren North Cape sees a sun that never sets from May 13th to July 29th. The narrow, tranquil Lyngenfjord is indescribably beautiful. Towering cliffs hold us in their friendly embrace as we stare spellbound at the splendors of this silent waterway. At the village of Lyngseidet, we go ashore. Driving up the winding road, each turn in the highway brings us a vista of enchanting loveliness. A group of Laplanders have pitched their tent beside the road, resting on their way to new grazing grounds for their reindeer, their only means of subsistence. The tents and clothes are made from reindeer skins, as is the homemade crib of the baby. The reindeer is the Laplanders' combined horse, cow, and sheep, furnishing not only clothing, but food and means of conveyance. The caribou of North America is a well-marked variety of this Scandinavian animal. The head of the family wants 2 kroner to pose for his photograph, and he sucks nervously at his pipe until the deal is closed. These Laplanders are nomads of Mongolian origin. In winter, they live in rudely constructed mud huts. The reindeer is a timid but strong animal. The antlers are shed annually and renewed, and are remarkable for their size. In the narrow fjord below us, our ship is waiting to carry us further down the rugged coast. In crossing the Arctic Circle for the second time, having crossed it before near the northern part of Iceland, an elaborate ceremony is arranged. King Neptune and his court come on board to hold boisterous and gay initiation and welcome all novices into his watery domain. The neophytes are prepared for the free shaven haircut given by the royal barber. We are in the Gulf Stream, luckily, so the water's not as cold as it looks. It's a lot of fun watching the other fellow get doused. There he goes. Look at the hole right through one of the Lofoten Islands. Wonder where they got the drill so far from a hardware store. Trondheim, originally called Nidaros, or the mouth of the River Nid, is a romantically quaint old town. The houses mostly of wood and the streets wide as a protection against the spreading of fire. High on a slender column stands King Olaf Tryggvason, who founded the city in 996. A close-up shows what a real Viking he was, while at his feet a flower girl arranges for her blooms. The cathedral suffered repeatedly from fires in the 17th century. Carefully restored, it is now the finest church in Norway and the scene of the coronations of its sovereigns. It dates from the 12th century. The technical school is one of the best in a modern building of interesting design. At Leirfors Falls, roaring down on their hurried way to the sea, there's a powerful hydroelectric plant transforming the beauty of the falls into useful energy for a large territory. It is the white coal of Norway. Old farmhouses are found on every hand. Note the doghouse near the doorsteps. He wouldn't come out as he doesn't speak English very well. Yes, that's moss growing on the roof. A little rain wouldn't hurt it. Fjellseter has glorious scenery in every direction. Most of the farms have spacious storage towers where the year's harvest is protected. Never more than 2 miles wide, the Jørundsfjord is about 25 miles long. Øye lies at the other end, and here we prepare for the overland excursion to Meråk at the head of the Geirangerfjord. A winding road leads up and up, each turn offering more and more entrancing views. Well, we're probably as interesting to them as they are to us. Fodder grass is carefully placed on the line to dry. They don't seem to be in any hurry, do they? Oh, well, there's nothing much else to do this afternoon, so why rush? Making hay while the sun shines in Norway. What a glorious place in which one could spend days and days just looking. Fluffy puffs of cotton in the blue sky above a quaint village church are like some fascinating dream come true. Cascades of water come tumbling down from above, one roaring waterfall after another lending its beauty to the scene. At Videsæter, high in the mountains, salmon trout are caught right out of the falls while we wait, and are they good. Djupvasshytten, or deep water lake, is 3,400 feet above sea level. Let's leave the overland party now and return to the ship for the ride through the Geirangerfjord to the village of Meråk. We'll pick the others up later. Snow-capped mountains mirror their towering peaks in the sleeping waters. The finest falls that we shall see are undoubtedly the Seven Sisters, bridal veils of gossamer lace clinging to the side of the rugged rock. We approach Merock, where we too ascend the mountains to rejoin the overland party. Tiny Merock in the distance is like some fairyland painting, with our ship seeming to beckon to us to return. Picking up the overland party, we prepare to descend, following the well-constructed road on our gradual drop down to the waiting ship. And as we steam slowly through the fjord, we wave farewell to the Seven Sisters. Bergen, the main city on the west coast of Norway, is a busy port with an export-minded population of 100,000. Old-fashioned, highly ornate facades decorate many of the houses. Bergen is the birthplace of Edvard Grieg and Ole Bull, musical geniuses beloved throughout the world. A funicular railroad leads to Fløyen on the mountaintop. The view from above is well worth the breathtaking ride. Bergen, originally called Björgvin, or Pasture of the Hills, was founded by King Olaf Kyrre in 1070. Here are samples of Norwegian national costumes. Descending again via the suspended matchbox, although it's quite safe, we visit the 10th century Fantoft Stave Church of Chinese architecture. Its builder probably was one of the far-roaming Vikings of olden days, whose journeys evidently took them as far as Asia. Horses and autos and bicycles go rumbling by, not far from the cathedral. The main street of Oslo, capital of Norway, is Karl Johan's Gade, leading up to the royal palace. When Norway and Sweden dissolved their union, the throne was offered to Prince Charles of Denmark. He took the name of King Håkon VII and married a daughter of Edward VII of England. The National Theatre with a monument to Ibsen, one of Norway's greatest sons. The House of Parliament, or Storting, has a lion on permanent guard outside, but most of the roaring is done inside, and not so much of that in this well-governed land. At the Folk Museum, we find houses from ancient days with their peculiar construction. One has a low stone base, and the other is supported on sturdy wooden feet, probably to allow for snowdrifts in wintertime. Goldstave Church, very old, has also been brought here intact. It, too, shows a Chinese influence. Hope that steeple won't come tumbling down. The only two Viking ships in the world in a perfect state of preservation date from the 9th century. Imagine setting out for America in one of those canoes. Here's the Royal Navigation School. How about some presents for the folks back home? Norwegian silverware and jewelry are famous for their lovely design. We are in Visby, capital of Gotland, an island off the east coast of Sweden and belonging to that country. The ruins of 16 ancient churches give proof of the importance and prosperity of this one-time Hanseatic stronghold, whose walls date from the 13th century. Many of the huge towers are still standing. The Cathedral of St. Mary is a beautiful example of pure Gothic from the 12th century. In the background is the only cathedral still standing. Ivy covering one end of an old house has windows cut through its leafy vines. Through an ancient arch, we catch a glimpse of an old, peaceful street. Stockholm, Venice of the North. For 700 years it has been the proud capital of Sweden. A surprisingly clean and ultra-modern city, Stockholm has a traffic control system far ahead of most cities in the world, as we soon discover. Tall, spacious buildings with lovely parks filled with graceful monuments, the new blended with the old. Just off a teeming artery, a tiny triangular open-air market is doing a brisk business. Scandinavian berries have a delicate flavor all their own. The City Hall, different from any in the world, contains an amazingly fine collection of Swedish handicrafts and arts. The Northern Museum, with its handsome exterior and interesting collections, is well worth a visit. This daringly executed fountain by Carl Milles, Sweden's outstanding contemporary sculptor, is proof of his genius. Drottninggatan, or Queen Street, is not very wide, but has been the main street for many centuries. But the main artery in Old Stockholm would make a dandy bowling alley. The Royal Palace is Italian Renaissance. Changing the guard takes place each day at noon in the courtyard of the palace. Today, the artillery takes over from the infantry. A regimental band always plays, and crowds of curious, both natives and visitors, throng the tiny square each day. At Skansen, the open-air folk museum, we find an old-fashioned folk dance in full swing. Uppsala, the famous university, was founded in 1477. Students belong to clubs called nations, depending upon from which part of Sweden they hail. The tiny park is crowded with strollers. And here is the main university building, with a monument to Professor Gustav Geyer, one of Uppsala's famous sons. Uppsala Cathedral was started in the 13th century by Archbishop Jacob Ulveson. Its graceful towers are dignified and imposing. The founder lies buried in the church he built, and a fine sarcophagus contains the dust of Gustav Vasa, Sweden's first king. Note the belfry separate from this old church, built on the site of an old pagan temple. Nearby are the mounds over the graves of ancient Swedish heroes. According to tradition, each mound contains a fully equipped Viking ship for the long journey to Valhalla, the ultimate heaven of all heroic warriors. Skokloster Castle contains the world's largest private armory. One of the generals fighting under Gustavus Adolphus during the 30 Years' War brought home everything that wasn't nailed down. And as we leave beautiful Stockholm, we pass an imposing group of buildings. Probably some millionaire's home? No, it's the poorhouse, if that isn't rich. We arrive in the harbor of Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. Formerly called Reval, it was at one time the main base of the Russian Navy. An important member of the Hanseatic League in the 13th century, it was conquered by Tsar Peter the Great in 1710, finally passing to Estonian rule in 1918. Tallinn had the inevitable wall with huge gates leading into the city. The old droshky still gets a call now and then. The city hall has a tower definitely reminiscent of a minaret. Any fat members of the guard probably had a busy time climbing to the top inside it. Olai Church is a massive, grim structure, impressive mostly by its size. Of a rare and lasting beauty is the splendid cathedral, typically Russian Orthodox, with its huge onion-shaped domes and lavishly decorated walls. Peter the Great found this simple cottage much more comfortable to live in than the ornate palace. He it was who said, "Thank God I have people to do things for me. I have never put on my socks since I was born." Katarinenthal Palace, with carefully tended lawns, had plenty of space for guests. The lady selling bread proves that she eats it anyway. Nothing like advertising. Surmounting the housetops, we see the towers where vigilant sentries once kept watch along the walls. As the sun sets, we return to our ship. We enter Leningrad via Kronstadt, Russia's Baltic naval base. Peter the Great founded St. Petersburg in 1703. It was later given the more Russian name of Petrograd and finally Leningrad. The Admiralty building has a spire like a needle. This is St. Isaac's Cathedral, now a museum. An equestrian statue of Peter the Great has his wife's name in much larger letters. Well, she paid for the monument. The Hermitage, once the Tsar's residence, has a treasure room alone worth the long trip to Russia. Pushkin City, formerly Detskoye Selo, or Children's Village, was once Tsarskoye Selo, the summer palace and playground of the Tsars. A huge pond mirrors the striking beauty of this imposing edifice where children now romp and play. Katarinen Palace was the splendid residence of Catherine II. It is now a museum, as are most of the other palaces of the Tsars. Peterhof Palace is further proof that the question of paying rent never bothered the Russian rulers. The magnificent fountains remind us of Versailles, but much water has flown since last the Tsar enjoyed their graceful playing. Every turn along the walks, now open to the general public, brings us new and beautiful vistas of the seemingly endless series of fountains. Moscow, dating from 1147, is one of Russia's most fascinating cities. From our hotel, we look down into a busy, teeming thoroughfare. This is the October railway station. Streetcars are always crowded. That's a metro or subway station in the background. Some of the world's famous Russian ballets had their premiere in the Royal Opera House, and the world is still waiting for another Pavlova. It's fun to watch the different styles and fashions hurry by. Ah, somebody just had a permanent wave. The New Inn Tourist Hotel is very much like a modern American hotel. Looks as if they could handle a convention without any trouble. A distinctly Grecian influence is revealed in the stately columns of the university. The Park of Rest and Culture, no, that is not Mae West, has floral portraits of Bolshevist leaders adorning the landscape. Please don't pick any flowers or you'll spoil somebody's complexion. They jump through the air with the greatest of ease, but don't break the wire supporting them, please. Children are checked in the morning by mothers going to work, and here they play all day under the watchful eyes of government-employed nurses. If he doesn't get that ring on soon, we'll lose our mind. Young Russia takes the air, waiting for Mummy to come and check them out after her day's work is done. Here she comes, tired and weary. Well, she has her 1-horsepower buggy while these good citizens wait for the crowded streetcar. Trechakov Picture Gallery is always filled with sightseers. The Kremlin, a walled city within the city, is an old fortress dating from the 14th century. The entrance to Lenin's tomb is one of the most impressive final resting places of any man in modern times. Crowds of curious wait for hours to enter it for a glimpse of the dead founder of their present government. Simple homes of modest citizens are seen from the railway carriage as we hurry back to Leningrad to board our ship once more. Helsingfors, capital of Finland, is a modern, delightfully laid-out city. The Protestant church is of unusual design. Of pure marble, the Russian Orthodox Church of St. Nikolai is a masterpiece of rare and lasting beauty. Nearby, the University of Helsingfors has a dignified simplicity in its architecture. Wide streets flanked by lofty buildings with numerous parks trimmed and swept by women make strolling a real pleasure. Finland has a world-famous composer, Sibelius, whose works are often heard at the Opera House. Excellent sculptors have beautified the parks with graceful statues. Bus drivers are perfect ladies, and how they love to gossip like perfect ladies. Let's visit the floating market where the stalls are boats and where fish are sold according to somebody else's scales. Just how accurate those scales are, nobody knows. But this lady's accurate. Ouch! That fish has seen its finish, so to speak. A final swing around the marketplace, and we prepare to leave Finland. Sailing is a thrilling sport on the Baltic, and no wonder with a breeze like this. The seashore resort of Sopot is famous and popular for its casino, its beautiful beach, and its mundane life. The stock tower of Danzig was once a prison and is now just another landmark. Artus Hof medieval guild house was later used as a stock exchange. Maybe those little men with the candles are looking for an honest broker. They built houses across the streets in the olden days, and then they put openings for the traffic. Not very good for the dress, but it's one way of getting down. Marienkirche, the cathedral, completely overshadows the houses surrounding it. The old crane gate, where masts were fitted to sailing vessels and heavy cargo was hoisted by means of a human treadmill. The human squirrels on that wheel had a merry-go-round time of it. As the evening sun glitters on the water, we bid farewell to Danzig. We are in Copenhagen, city of spires and paradise of the two-wheeled horse. Danish children pedal before they walk almost. Smart cavalry officers seem to hold back another wild battalion of speed demons. And don't try to beat the light. Crossing the street against that crowd is like going for a touchdown against the Rose Bowl champions. This is a Danish newsboy. Add a girl, tell him all about the latest scandal. Amalienborg Palace, the residence of King Christian X. One of the most democratic and beloved rulers in the world, the 6 feet 6 inches tall Danish monarch loves to stroll about his city incognito, chatting with his subjects and hearing the voice of his people. The marble church has a dome only a few feet smaller in circumference than St. Peter's in Rome. The National Theater gave our Metropolitan that great artist, Lauritz Melchior, and many other splendid singers. Let's have luncheon on the terrace of Hotel d'Angleterre, meeting place of fashionable society and visitors from every land. The Thorvaldsen Museum contains the sculptor's tomb as well as a collection of his masterpieces. Here we see his Jason and the Golden Fleece. Motorboating is very popular among the Danes, who are great sailors and water sports enthusiasts. Christiansborg Castle, another royal residence, is noted for its architectural beauty. Denmark was the home of Hans Christian Andersen, dreamer of stories for children throughout the world. The Stock Exchange has a peculiar spire formed by entwined dragon tails. The heads of the dragons point north, east, south, and west. Wonder if these snapdragons will snap at us in Danish. Gefion Fountain is a magnificent piece of art, bold in conception and striking in every detail. Water spouts from the nostrils of the powerful bullocks impatient to pull the heavy chariot. At the broad entrance to the vast harbor sits Ray Eriksson's Little Mermaid at the foot of a magnificent shore boulevard. Nightlife in Copenhagen is merry and gay, and we must visit Tivoli, the open-air amusement center. The illuminated fountains seem to welcome us back again someday to this happy, carefree city of smiling people and friendly cheer. Our pictorial journey of the Northern Wonderlands is over. A few hours sailing brings us to Hamburg. Here we can decide on a thrilling excursion to some of the wonder spots in Germany. A short or a long tour, east, west, or south, a trip up or down the Rhine, or to the Bavarian Alps, is a fitting climax to our voyage of adventure and discovery. We may return to our homes at any time during the year. Any Hamburg American North German Lloyd steamer is at our disposal to take us home, contented after a perfect cruise. Here's hoping we may all enjoy it together someday, retracing our eager steps and refilling our book of happy memories with new appreciation of nature's beauty spots.